All right, here are 3 compression mistakes that are likely killing your mix. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so number 1 is kind of a 2-in-1, and that is throwing a compressor on everything in your mix, and 2, not actually understanding what compression even does. So that combination there can really kill your mix, and that's something that I did back in the day when I didn't really know what you're doing. It's really easy as a beginner or even intermediate to think, well, hey, the pros use compression, I got to be using compression too. And so what you do is you start compressing everything and you end up actually making your mix a lot worse because not everything needs compression. And when you do use compression, you should understand what you're actually doing to the signal. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and explain what a compressor does, and I'm going to show you what a compressor does in action. If you already know what compression is and you have a pretty thorough understanding of it, go ahead and skip to number 2, but I recommend sticking around for number 1. But I recommend you stick around anyway, just in case I kind of cover it in a way that you haven't heard before. So the 2 main purposes of compression are to control the dynamic range of a signal, and number 2, to shape the tone of a signal. And so number 1 is the main purpose of compression, and it's why compression was invented in the first place, and that's to control the dynamic range of a signal. And I'm going to show you that right here and why it's important. I think it's really easy to demonstrate this on vocals. And so what I have here is I have a vocal that was recorded into a microphone. And when I say that, when a singer sings into a microphone, a singer's always pretty much going to have a very natural dynamic range. And so what dynamics are, what a dynamic range is basically the difference between the quiet parts of the signal or the vocal and the loud parts. And so why we use compression is because when the loud parts get loud, we would have to turn that down, right? And when the quiet parts are really quiet, they might get lost in the mix. We might not hear them. And so what a compressor does is when the vocal gets loud, it goes past a threshold, we're actually able to automatically turn it down, which is basically compressing it. And then it turns it down. And then now we have limited the dynamic range, and then we can turn up the overall volume of the signal, which then brings up the quiet parts that would otherwise get lost in the mix. And so I'm going to play this vocal for you, and what you're going to be listening for is that it sounds nice, but it kind of is coming in and out. It's like you can tell that the loud parts are kind of coming like at you, and then the quiet parts, and I'll show you ones to look out for, kind of get a little bit lost. And then I'll go ahead and I'll turn the compressor on, and you can hear the difference. So listen to this vocal with no compression on it at all. I have a little bit of mixing stuff on, but no compression.
I was sleeping before we met, in the dark and tired. I was reckless, so I admit, I started on my fire.
Now with compressor on.
I was sleeping before we met, in the dark and tired. I was reckless, so I admit, I started on my fire.
And so here's like a really good way to demonstrate this, how compression can help you hear the lyrics that sometimes might get lost. Right here, when she says all, listen how it could get lost in the mix if I don't have a compressor on. So go ahead and take a listen.
I started on my fire.
Now with compressor on.
I started on my fire.
And it is kind of subtle here, but you can hear what I mean where, you know, especially if you have a vocal that has a lot of lyrics or is really going up and down, a compressor would just make it, you know, it just makes it much better. I personally really like using compression, especially on vocals. And I think it just really helps. And I think there's a big difference between an uncompressed vocal and a really nicely compressed vocal. So that's reason number 1, and that's to limit the dynamic range, which allows us to place a vocal or another instrument in the mix in a way where the listener can hear it really well. Number 2 is to shape the tone of a signal, and all I really mean by that is that we can use compressors on different elements of a mix, like let's say something in the drums, like a clap or something like that. And I'll go ahead and take this one here. So I've got a clap here, right? And so if I have, let's say that I want to emphasize the attack of the clap. So here's the clap with no compression on it. Now if I take this compressor and I have a really slow attack, which about 30 milliseconds is a slow attack, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this up, and now take a listen to the difference. Okay, here's with compression. I'll go ahead and go back and forth. And so let me actually turn the makeup down a little bit, even that out. I'll go ahead and go back and forth. So it is getting a little bit louder there, so I don't, you can be a little bit biased. I do have some makeup gain on, but in general, with a slow attack, you can hear that it basically emphasizes the transient of the signal, and that's going to be basically making that clap pop, and that's how we're shaping the tone of something. Conversely, if I take this attack time, watch what happens when I slowly turn this attack time down. So I'll go ahead and I'll just loop this clap, and then watch what happens here when I turn this attack time down. So now I'll turn the makeup gain way up because we're really compressing it there. And you hear how what it's doing there? It's really like shaping down that clap. It's making it sound like a completely different clap because we have a really fast attack, and it's basically just destroying that transient, and it's like flattening and like squashing it out. So let's take a listen to one more time. So that can be useful sometimes, and it's just good to know that with compression, we're able to shape the tone of different signals. So fast attack is going to squash that transient. Slower attack is going to emphasize it. A lot of time we want to find something in between, especially if we're controlling the dynamic range. Okay, so compression mistake number 2, actually number 1 kind of leads into this, and that's using fast attack compression all over your mix and actually kind of killing your mix because you're doing this. And so, like I said, with fast attack, like a 1 millisecond attack time, if you start throwing your compressor on everything and then just kind of lowering the threshold aimlessly, that's a quick way to destroy your mix. And I actually saw one of those mixing master classes, and I always space on the guy's name. I think it's Bob something. And I remember him vividly saying, like, hey guys, if you use fast attack compression on your mix, that's a really quick way to just destroy your mix. And so let me go ahead and show you an example of this and what I mean. So on Ableton, for example, if you grab their regular compressor, I'm going to throw it on this percussion area. It's going to automatically come with a 1 millisecond attack time, which is a pretty fast attack time. So in general, this would be like 0.01 would be really, really fast. 1 millisecond's fast. 10 milliseconds gets to like between 10 and medium or 10 and 20 is like a medium attack. 30 milliseconds, I would say, is a slow attack. And you can see I've got this glue compressor over here on these drums that I have set up with a slow attack because I actually kind of wanted to make the drums pop. But let's go ahead and show you what happens if we used fast attack compression on these drums. So let's go ahead and take a listen to these percussion elements. Now watch what happens if I lower the threshold, and I'll add some makeup gain as well so you can really hear the difference. So this is obviously an extreme example, but you can see how it would just destroy your mix if you used fast attack all over the place. So here's no compression, and I'll go ahead and go back and forth. So you hear how it goes from like a nice poppy sound, like those drums, like the snares are really popping and sound great, to like a really squashed and just not good sound. So that's what I mean by that. So using fast attack all over the place is a really quick way to destroy the transients of your mix, and especially want to be careful with that on drums. And just to contrast that, take a look at what you can do with some slow attack compression. So here's no compression. with compression. And so it's subtle, but with this glue compressor on with a little slow attack compressor compression going, I can actually emphasize and kind of bring more life out of the mix. So that's mistake number 2. Mistake number 3 is basically using makeup gain or auto makeup gain and then just thinking louder is better. So this is another mistake I made back in the day, especially because Ableton's compressor used to come with the auto makeup gain on, like automatically. So let's say you would grab the compressor and you would throw it on a track, the makeup gain would be on. And so for me, what I would do is I would take it, and let's go ahead and solo these again. And now watch what happens. I'm going to go ahead and lower the threshold, take a listen to what happens. So you can see with that auto makeup gain on, I lower the threshold and it's getting much louder. And because we always perceive louder as better, like all the time, take any example and just, take a track, take whatever sound you're working with, put them side by side and put the one on the right 3 dB louder. And then if you go back and forth between them, you're always going to think the louder one's better. It's just how we're just biased towards that. And that's something you have to actively make sure you are consciously aware of, especially while you're compressing, to make sure that you're actually making your sound better and not just get louder. And so you never really want to use auto makeup gain unless you really know what you're doing and you kind of have a sound that you really know what you're doing and you're used to it. But even me, I've been doing this a long time, I just turn auto makeup gain on because now if I want to really hear what I'm doing, let's say I go like that and I'm like, okay, I want to have a little bit slower attack time. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn my gain up by myself. And now I can go back and forth. I can really match the gain. You want to match the makeup gain pretty much to the volume that it was with no compression on it. And that way you can go back and forth and you can really hear the difference and really hear what the compression is actually doing to your signal. Whereas if you just have auto makeup gain or if you just blast that makeup gain on after compressing something, it's gonna be louder and you're just gonna think, oh, that's better. When the reality is it's not better and it's making things a lot worse. So that's pretty much it. Those are 3 compression mistakes that could be killing your mix. And if you like my teaching style, go ahead and look in the description below. Grab my course, Mix Immersions. I do a deep dive on compression and I teach you everything you need to know about mixing and mastering. And I also mix and master a few tracks from start to finish. And it's the course that I wish I had when I first started out doing this. And I also have some free stuff in the description below as well. So go ahead and check that out. And I'll see you guys again next time.